friends, welcome back. Mark Peotter here. Today we are going to discuss jazz music for saxophone and jazz mouthpieces for saxophone. Over the years, I have been asked numerous times by students and parents of students to recommend a jazz saxophone mouthpiece. It is a difficult subject. It's kind of like walking into a piano store and asking for a jazz piano. What you are really looking for is a sound. There's a sound in your mind and you want equipment that will make that sound easy for you. So we are going to spend some time discussing what is the sound that you seek. And what does jazz music sound like to you? Charlie Parker was one of the pioneers of jazz music, and he is still regarded as one of the best jazz saxophonists ever. Parker played on at least 2 different Hart mouthpieces, at least 2 different Auto-Link mouthpieces, and a Runyon Model 22. And yet, he always sounds like Charlie Parker. I can guarantee you that he never went into a music store asking for a jazz mouthpiece. Is the answer in your gear? Is the mouthpiece the answer? A few years later, Ben Webster hits the scene with this breathy, romantic sound, which is very identifiable at the end of his breath. Ben Webster played on a metal Auto-Link mouthpiece with a small tip opening, a big chamber, and a Rico 3.5 reed. But it was his breath that we all remember as his signature sound. A few years later, John Coltrane hits the scene, and he is still regarded as one of the best jazz saxophone players ever. John Coltrane played on Auto-Link Tone Masters with a 5 or 6 facing and firm Rico reeds. When you watch John Coltrane play, you will notice he takes a pretty deep bite, which adds to that harsh growl in what would otherwise be an open, mellow tone. Everybody knows the sound of Paul Desmond playing Take 5. Paul Desmond played on an MC Gregory 4A mouthpiece, and he used Rico 3.5 reeds. Like Ben Webster, he also has that breathiness at the end of his phrases. As we discuss mouthpieces, it's probably better to describe the tone in other words like bright, dark, open, closed, loud, soft, projecting or blending, buzzy, breathy. All of these sounds are part of jazz music. And now let's fast forward through the 50s and the 60s and go to what they used to call contemporary jazz. Tom Scott was a great example of contemporary jazz. Now, Tom Scott's sound was pretty radical for the time. He liked to use metal mouthpieces. He liked to use a high baffle to give him that extra brightness. He even preferred to use synthetic reeds or a Rico plastic cover reed to increase the buzziness in his sound. In the 1980s, Miles Davis had a nice comeback in his career, and his saxophone player was Bill Evans. Bill Evans had that modern jazz sound, but also bringing back some of the old-fashioned jazz tone with him. Bill Evans uses his own signature mouthpiece, which is based on the Dave Gardalla mouthpiece made for Michael Brecker. And now we're moving up into the 90s and even more current. Eric Marienthal is an amazing saxophone player. Eric uses the Beechler Metal No. 7 for his alto sax and a Berg Larson 100/2 metal mouthpiece for his tenor sax. Eric prefers to use the Van Doren 2.5 traditional cane reeds. Before you go out and buy a bunch of mouthpieces, think about this. Can you produce the sound that is in your mind with the mouthpiece that you already own? After researching the gear from many players and in my 25 years of experience, I have come to a few conclusions. Number one, the player is the most important factor. Notice how all the players sound like themselves regardless of what equipment they are using. Number two, every artist has a sound in their head that they are trying to achieve. They select the gear to achieve the sound that they are looking for easily. Think of it as shopping for the perfect fitting pair of shoes. Often you buy a pair of shoes that are good enough, but once in a while you find that perfect fit. Number three, I notice how some artists change their gear during their careers several times, and others do not. I believe this goes back to number two, which is looking for that perfect fit. Some artists hit upon it right away, and some keep searching. And number four, there is no such thing as a jazz mouthpiece. Choose your equipment to express yourself well. Thank you for joining me. Leave your comments below, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.